This woman is absolutely incredible. She's been undercover for 7 years and has cracked countless cases without ever giving herself away. Her name is Go-hee Rai, an agent with the Korean National Intelligence Service, currently working as a spy at the Korean embassy overseas, investigating a drug smuggling ring. We see her skillfully lock the main door and then call her superiors to report in, preparing to close the net. Next, Go-hee Rai climbs onto a chair, takes down a framed picture, intending to retrieve the hidden camera. Suddenly, there's a series of loud knocks at the door, which is now locked again. However, instead of hiding, she tears a hole in her stocking. At the moment she opens the door, Go-hee Rai turns around and says, "My stocking ripped. After I change, I'll leave right away." The guy, witnessing this unexpected scene, is at a loss for words, tells Go-hee Rai to deal with it quickly, and then leaves the room. Immediately after, she takes out the camera, puts it inside a lipstick tube and carries it away. The next day, her superior is arrested for drug trafficking. His name is Daljin. After his brother passed away, he's been living with his nephew, Cha-hun. Daljin's dream is to become a martial arts actor. During a TV audition for martial arts actors, Daljin works very hard to get selected, but he keeps making mistakes. "It's okay, here I come." "Cha-hun, what's wrong?" "Cha-hun, are you okay? I must have scared you, right? I was just demonstrating breaking bricks, everything's fine." "He's not my son, he's my nephew." With Cha-hun's help, he is eventually chosen, though only reluctantly. Daljin works incredibly hard as both a taekwondo instructor and a martial arts actor. But to get more roles, he's willing to try anything, no matter how dangerous. Injuries are commonplace. Daljin also teaches Cha-hun taekwondo. With his exceptional talent, within a few years, Cha-hun goes from white belt to black belt and is selected for the national team to perform overseas. Cha-hun sees his uncle struggling so much and wants to give up this opportunity, but his uncle yells at him, telling him, "You don't need to worry about money." Cha-hun can't win the argument and has to participate. Before they go, the two of them haven't made up. Before boarding the plane, Cha-hun takes out his phone and leaves a message for Daljin. "Check the drive. I'll upload a video." After that, he boards the plane. At the same time, the police department receives a phone call saying there's a terrorist on flight B-375 to Morocco, and they must stop the flight from taking off. Before the caller can finish, he's taken away by a man in black. At the same time, the police station's siren wailed. The female officer, while retreating, made a call to prepare a report about the incident to her superiors. Just then, a woman tapped the back of her neck, causing her to foam at the mouth and collapse unconscious. All the passengers were already on board the plane, prepared to take off at any moment. This was a normal commercial flight to Morocco, carrying 211 passengers. Among them was a mysterious man. He entered the restroom, retrieved a pre-prepared refrigerant, and then stealthily slipped into the plane's control room. There, he secured the refrigerant and aimed it at the oxygen line. Under the effect of the refrigerant, the pressure rapidly increased. The atmospheric pressure suddenly spiked to a critical point. This was followed by a loud explosion, and the plane's wing was destroyed. The plane immediately lost balance, and the passengers in the cabin were thrown into a panic. The captain tried his best to control the aircraft, but it was futile. Due to the lack of oxygen, the passengers began losing consciousness one by one. At this point, the plane was rapidly plummeting downwards. The moment it plunged into the clouds, the plane exploded. The next day, Daljin saw the news report. None of the passengers on the plane had survived. His nephew was also on the list. Daljin was utterly distraught, unable to believe this sudden nightmare. It was the most severe aviation accident in Korean history. The government was forced to make a statement. However, at this time, the president was still calmly putting on makeup, complaining that the airplane crash happened during his last year in office, a stain on his political career. Afterwards, he went to the press conference, pretending to express his condolences to the victims' families. A few days later, the airline organized a trip for the relatives to Morocco to commemorate the victims and discuss compensation. As the plane crashed into the Indian Ocean, recovering all the victims was nearly impossible. Therefore, they decided to hold a joint funeral on a beach nearby. The person who greeted them was Go-hee Rai, an embassy staff member. On the way to the hotel, Daljin happened to see the mysterious man from the plane. He remembered the video on Cha-hun's drive. This man was not the person in the video. How was it that everyone on board had clearly perished, yet Jerome was safe and sound, standing right here? Daljin immediately chased after Jerome through the crowded market and into a small alley. Just when he thought he'd lost him, Jerome was waiting for him there. Daljin was about to approach and question him when he saw Jerome quickly draw a gun and fire. Fortunately, Daljin was quick on his feet, reacting instantly to knock the gun out of Jerome's hand. However, in the end, Daljin was still no match for him. Jerome used a flower pot to knock Daljin to the ground. Refusing to give up, Daljin, driven by his extraordinary will, got back up and climbed onto the rooftop to continue his pursuit. At this point, he noticed Jerome was getting ready to drive away. Daljin started running frantically across the rooftops, then launched himself down, landing on the car's roof. He demanded that the mysterious man get out of the car, but Jerome wouldn't listen, instead directly stepping on the gas, intending to run Daljin over. Daljin, propelled by the momentum, clung to the hood, desperately holding onto the car, climbing from the front to the roof, then falling towards the back of the car. Even while being dragged by the car, he didn't give up, struggling to climb into the passenger compartment. Daljin repeatedly used his elbows to break the car window, swinging himself and crawling into the car. The two wrestled with each other in the confined space. Just when it seemed that Daljin was about to subdue Jerome, a sudden sharp turn caused the car to crash into a guardrail. Daljin was immediately thrown out. When he climbed back up, Jerome had already driven away. The plane crash was said to have resulted in the deaths of 211 people. However, Daljin discovered that Jerome, a man who was supposed to have been on that flight, was alive and living in a foreign country. After the brawl, Jerome fled. Daljin recounted the entire event to the victims' families, but nobody believed him. How could anyone have survived when a plane exploded at an altitude of 10,000 meters? Some even thought he was crazy, talking nonsense. Suddenly, Daljin remembered someone else who had also encountered Jerome in that situation, Go-hee-rai. While chasing Jerome, Daljin had coincidentally seen Go-hee-rai walk past Jerome. He had called out to her to help him stop that man. After that, he asked her, "Do you remember the person I asked you to stop at the airport?" But Go-hee-rai appeared confused. Daljin then opened Cha-hun's drive, found the video, and pointed to Jerome for Go-hee-rai to identify. The family members of the victims also looked towards her. Go-hee-rai carefully studied the image, trying to recall the scene at that time, but she didn't recognize the man at all. With no other option, they decided to go to the airport to review the surveillance cameras. Strangely, the man who appeared in the surveillance footage was not the mysterious man in the video. The families of the victims were furious. They were already suffering from the loss of their loved ones. Why did they have to endure this torment as well? Everything had escalated to this point, and Daljin said nothing more. However, he knew that he had directly fought with Jerome and was absolutely certain that the surveillance cameras had been tampered with by someone. At the same time, Jerome was investigating Daljin and learned that he was related to one of the victims. He realized he might have been exposed, which greatly disturbed Jerome. He decided to handle Daljin himself and destroy the evidence. Meanwhile, Daljin backed up the video, locked his laptop, and set off to find Go-hee-rai. Go-hee-rai's daytime behavior had made Daljin suspect she might be involved in the incident. When he knocked on her door and received no answer, Daljin decided to climb over the wall into her house. Just then, a gun was pointed at the back of his head. The person holding the gun was Go-hee-rai. Daljin wasn't scared. Instead, he questioned her, "Are you an accomplice with the terrorists?" While Go-hee-rai was explaining, Daljin suddenly snatched the gun from her hand and warned that she had to confess the truth, or he would take action. In response, Go-hee-rai merely said indifferently, "It's okay." This angered Daljin, and he pulled the trigger, only to discover the gun wasn't loaded. Go-hee-rai then said, "I know you're about to lose it, but how can you see me as a terrorist? What are you doing? Let me go." Having never seen a man so stubborn, Daljin pushed Go-hee-rai against the wall, then tied her up and ransacked the house. Go-hee-rai warned him that he was committing a crime. When Daljin lifted a box to inspect it, Go-hee-rai anxiously stopped him and begged him not to open it. However, Daljin opened it anyway. Inside were just Go-hee Rai's personal clothes, but he didn't care and continued his search. He discovered over 10 passports and fake identification documents hidden within her underwear. There was also an identification card from the National Intelligence Service. At this point, Daljin realized Go-hee Rai's identity was not simple. Feeling exposed, Go-hee Rai arrogantly demanded he untie her, but Daljin didn't believe her, even mocking, "No weapons in the house, and you call yourself an agent?" Just then, Go-hee Rai's phone rang. Daljin answered it and turned on the speakerphone. The caller was her superior from the National Intelligence Service. Through the conversation, Daljin confirmed Go-hee Rai's identity and quickly untied her. Unexpectedly, as soon as she stood up, Go-hee Rai immediately slapped Daljin. After learning she was an agent, Daljin took the video that Cha-hun had filmed before the accident and pleaded with her to help investigate. Seeing Daljin's pleading eyes and understanding his pain of losing a loved one, Go-hee Rai softened and agreed. She sent the video to her close colleague, Hwa Suk, hoping she would help analyze what Jerome was saying on the phone in the video. The following afternoon, the memorial service for the victims concluded on the beach. The families of the victims prepared to board planes back home, but Daljin decided to stay in Morocco to pursue the culprits. As he prepared to reveal the crucial video, he discovered that all the data had been deleted. Daljin panicked and ran back to his room, only to find that his safe had been opened and his laptop was also gone. At the same time, Hwa Suk, through technical identification, learned the content of the mysterious man's call on the plane. She immediately informed Go-hee Rai. Upon receiving the news, Go-hee Rai immediately went to the aviation authority to retrieve the recording information from the black box. By matching the voice, she discovered that Jerome had used a code to speak with the co-pilot. At this point, Go-hee Rai realized that the B-357 plane crash was not an accident, but rather a terrorist attack. Meanwhile, Daljin was buying things in a convenience store when he was chased by a large, armed man. The man fired at Daljin, but due to his poor marksmanship, he emptied his entire magazine without hitting Daljin. Taking this opportunity, Daljin jumped out of the window to escape. Ho-shik drove to pick him up, but was unexpectedly shot by the pursuer. Daljin quickly drove Ho-shik to the hospital for emergency treatment. At the same time, Go-hee Rai returned home and discovered that her computer was gone. Immediately after, a masked person unexpectedly attacked her from behind. However, Go-hee Rai was not someone who would easily be subdued. She picked up a knife on the floor, stabbed the attacker in the thigh, and then quickly took control of him with a gun. After removing his mask, she discovered he was an Indian man. He confessed that someone had paid him $10,000 to kill Go-hee Rai and stage it as a suicide. He also didn't know the identity of the other party, as they had only communicated by phone. Go-hee Rai demanded that the man call the person who hired him. Unexpectedly, the person who answered the phone was Daljin. At that time, Daljin was at the hospital trying to save Ho-shik. He explained that the phone belonged to Ho-shik. Hearing this, Go-hee Rai concluded that Ho-shik was an accomplice of the terrorists and that arresting him would help solve the case. Daljin was shocked. He ran to the operating room and found that Ho-shik had disappeared. While Daljin was searching everywhere, he had escaped from the hospital. At this time, the Indian man took advantage of the situation to run away and disappeared in a flash. Go-hee Rai decided to go to the hospital to assist Daljin and called Dr. Kim at the aviation authority. She informed him that the video had been deleted but not to worry, as she had sent a copy to Hwa Suk. If nothing happened, the identity of the terrorist could be traced tomorrow. However, as soon as he hung up, Dr. Kim immediately informed this news to a mysterious woman. At this time, Daljin was chasing after Ho-shik. On the road, Go-hee Rai accidentally hit him with her car, causing him serious injuries. Knowing he could not escape, Ho-shik took out poison and threatened the two not to come closer. During the struggle, he noticed a sniper on a distant rooftop. Worried for his family's safety, Ho-shik chose to commit suicide by taking the poison. Before he died, he used his last bit of strength to advise them not to provoke the organization behind them, as they were very dangerous. Daljin desperately tried to shake Ho-shik, repeatedly asking about the identity of the mastermind. Go-hee Rai couldn't take it anymore, pushed him aside, and told him to calm down. This action inadvertently saved Daljin's life, because immediately after, the sniper targeted them. The two quickly hid behind the car. Go Hee-rai drew her gun, intending to risk a confrontation with the sniper, but Daljin, wanting revenge, snatched the gun. He ran towards the assassin, but could do nothing against the opponent's advantageous position. They were forced to use tactics to limit the sniper's visibility. When the opponent was reloading, Daljin fired to provide cover, and together with Go Hee-rai, ran towards the building where the attacker was hiding. When they got there, the assassin had already been led away by a mysterious woman. Women, when drunk, are truly terrifying. A prime example is Go Hee-rai, who, after having a few drinks, pointed at her team leader, Ti-woong, lifted his face, and unexpectedly kissed him. HWA Suk's attempts to stop her were futile. What caused Go Hee-rai to act so out of character? Let's rewind a few hours. A mysterious reporter met with Daljin at a cafe. He revealed to Daljin that the plane crash was linked to a fighter jet development project, and that a key source would meet with him soon after. Daljin asked to go along, while Go Hee-rai silently followed behind. When they arrived at the hotel, the reporter went upstairs alone. However, he never came back down. Daljin went to check on him and found the reporter lying unconscious in a pool of blood, using his last bit of strength to give him a pen. While Daljin was calling the police, a masked assailant suddenly rushed in and attacked him. However, he didn't accomplish his goal and quickly turned and fled. It seems like in Korean movies, the assassins are always the worst at making getaways. When Daljin returned, all traces in the room had been cleaned up, and the reporter's body was gone. Furthermore, the hotel's surveillance cameras didn't record anything suspicious. The police didn't believe Daljin and suggested he was being deceived. Go Hee-rai had to present her National Intelligence Service employee ID to keep the investigation going. However, even HWA Suk suspected Daljin was lying, although Go Hee-rai and he had experienced even stranger things abroad. Nevertheless, after the police left, Daljin examined the pen and discovered it was a corrupted USB drive. He took it to Go Hee-rai to fix. Meanwhile, Daljin attended a gathering with the victims' families. Overwhelmed by their grief, he couldn't hold back his emotions. At the same time, Go Hee-rai fixed the USB. On it, she found records about the co-pilot, Yuzi, who was piloting the crashed plane. She called Daljin, telling him that Yuzi had taken out a large accident insurance policy 6 months prior, with his wife, Oh Sang-mai, as the beneficiary. It was suspicious that Oh Sang-mai not only owed money to loan sharks but also to the bank, yet she still maintained a large insurance policy. Go Hee-rai suspected that Oh Sang-mai might be an accomplice. Hearing this, Daljin immediately went to confront Oh Sang-mai. He ran into Gwang Duk, Oh Sang-mai's bodyguard. Gwang Duk knocked Daljin down, causing him to lose consciousness, and he was taken to the hospital. On the way, Gwang Duk coincidentally met Edward Park, a representative of the loan shark company. Edward Park asked his secretary, Mickey, to take Daljin to the hospital. When he woke up, Daljin requested to meet with Edward Park and told him everything he knew, while also presenting his evidence. Edward Park was incredibly surprised and promised to have people investigate and to provide Daljin with a safe place to stay. However, their meeting had been secretly monitored by another power. At this time, a dangerous operation was being plotted. This man, who was quite handsome, was barely awake when a beautiful woman delivered him food. The woman, who introduced herself as Lily, the new neighbor, brought a cake to welcome him. Seduced by Lily's looks and sweet voice, Daljin let his guard down and opened the door to thank her. Immediately, Lily sprayed him with pepper spray, knocking him unconscious. At the same time, Go Hee-rai was looking for Daljin. On the way, she casually passed by Lily but didn't pay attention to her. When she reached Daljin's door, she found cake scattered everywhere, the door unlocked, and Daljin gone. Remembering the image of the strange woman who had just left, Go Hee-rai realized that Daljin might have been kidnapped. She immediately rushed to pursue them. As Lily directed her subordinates in preparation to inject Daljin, their vehicle was suddenly hit by a violent collision, throwing everyone into disarray. The impact jolted Daljin out of his unconsciousness. He quickly realized he was bound to a stretcher. Taking advantage of the chaos, he continued to feign sleep. When the assassin moved to inject him again, Daljin abruptly sprang up. With his skilled martial arts, he subdued 2 of his attackers, then freed himself from his restraints, seizing the syringe as a weapon. He stabbed the driver, causing him to panic. The careening truck forced the driver to swerve sharply, resulting in a violent crash that knocked Daljan unconscious. Lily and her underlings regained consciousness first. As one of the henchmen moved to finish off Daljan, Lily slapped him hard, reminding him, "Leaving evidence from a kill means we won't get paid, you idiot." Immediately after, a vehicle arrived to whisk them away. Only after Lily's group disappeared did Daljan slowly regain consciousness. The police and Go-hee Rai quickly arrived on the scene. Even though he hadn't had time to rest, Go-hee Rai immediately pulled Daljan away, ordering him into the car. On the way, she announced that the president was going to visit the victims' families in half an hour. However, Daljan was not invited to attend. This made Daljan furious, but he tried to remain calm. He began to worry about Go-hee Rai since she, as a government employee, had leaked classified information to him. He warned her that she might lose her job. But Go-hee Rai just smiled, saying that she was the daughter of a hero, and that the most important thing was to act for justice. Upon arriving at the Blue House presidential residence, they were stopped by the guards. Refusing to give up, Daljan found a way to infiltrate the building by pretending to be a tour guide assistant. Inside, President Gukpyo was shaking hands with each victim's family, projecting an image of closeness and friendliness for the cameras. Seizing the opportunity, Daljan attempted to access the reception area but was spotted by security cameras. Immediately, he was surrounded by a group of security personnel. Using all his agility, Daljan made it to the second floor, but there, the number of guards was even greater. He was eventually subdued and escorted away. Daljan's yelling caught the attention of Prime Minister Sunjo. Despite being held back, Sunjo insisted on bringing Daljan to meet the president in the conference room. There, in front of the gathered reporters, President Gukpyo greeted Daljan. Without hesitation, Daljan stated bluntly that the B-375 plane crash was not an accident but a terrorist attack. He played the recording of the conversation between Go-hee Rai and Ti-woong, exposing the cover-up by the director of the National Intelligence Service. He quickly asked if this place was closing, and asked for the explanation about the USB stick the monitoring team took being infected with a virus. He said that he had seen it firsthand and did not understand why he had to continue to prove it. He accused the National Intelligence Service of covering up the truth. He pointed out that 211 people had died in the plane incident and that it was an order from the director. Upon hearing this, the families of the victims became agitated. The reporters also turned to look at the director of the National Intelligence Service. Daljan then mentioned that Jessica Lee had taken out an accidental death insurance policy for her husband, which caused her to faint in anger. He finished by saying that tomorrow the news will break that everything is about to be exposed, and asked how Jessica Lee will deal with this and to call the director. She is America's top, beautiful assassin. Lately, she's been consistently embarrassed by a martial arts actor because she failed in her mission to eliminate Daljan, who was recently taken over by a new organization. Currently, he is under the protection of the National Intelligence Service NIS, and Go-hee Rai is among those protecting him. The two just met, and she immediately boasted, "I'm very special. Even if I cause a huge problem, I won't get fired." Daljan, not wanting to be outdone, boasted that he had fought against over 30 guards without losing and even met with President Gukpyo. The two also developed feelings for each other after numerous collaborations. At this time, Sang Mai is surrounded by reporters and has to be hospitalized. After entering the hospital room, she sits up as if nothing had happened. Truly, she's a talented actress. Immediately after, someone enters the hospital room, places a document down, and leaves. The next day, the NIS begins interrogating Sang Mai. She handles it very calmly, without revealing any loopholes, as if she knew the interrogation process beforehand. In the end, they have no choice but to release Sang Mai. The director scolds his subordinates as useless and turns to leave. However, it is all a plan by Director Gang because there is an internal spy in the NIS. Only a few people know the inside story. Meanwhile, the agents protecting Daljan are happily eating noodles. Soon after, they all collapse. Because Go-hee Rai ate less, she wakes up first, hurriedly runs to the bathroom, and vomits. An assassin with a gun enters the room and fires several shots at the bed, but discovers no one is there. He turns and fires wildly at the wardrobe. Daljin unexpectedly leaps out from behind the curtain, and the two wrestle. Daljin subdues the assassin with a powerful slam. The assassin picks up the gun from the floor and points it at him. At the critical moment, a gunshot rings out, saving Daljin for the first time. Having shot someone, Go Hee-rai sees the dead body and doesn't know what to do. Her hands tremble uncontrollably. Daljin takes the phone from the assassin's pocket and makes a call. Upon realizing that the person on the other end of the line is Director Min, she quickly hangs up. Afterward, Go Hee-rai fakes a report that the operation was successful with a photo, then cleans up the scene thoroughly. Director Min says triumphantly that everything has been arranged. It turns out he was the one who gave the document to Sang Mai earlier. However, after the NIS released her, they secretly sent people to follow her. By the late evening, Sang Mai goes to a church, cautiously entering a small room. She takes a phone hidden behind the cross and makes a call. The person who answers the phone is First Officer Yuzi. Sang Mai says that it's safe now. After avoiding danger, she can enjoy life. But she doesn't know that all of her actions are being wiretapped by the NIS. As soon as she hangs up, NIS personnel arrive at the scene, break down the door, and arrest Sang Mai again. On the way back, Ti-woon calls and informs Director Gang of the news. At that moment, a large truck crashes directly into them. Their fates are still unknown. Afterward, a group of people takes Sang Mai away. The two rush to the scene, but by then the assassin's phone had stopped ringing. Daljin didn't answer the call, and as soon as he hung up, another call came in. At this point, he knew his faked death had been exposed. The beautiful girl, after getting drunk, had given Daljin a bold, assertive kiss. This made him feel flustered. However, the next morning, Go Hee-rai woke up with no memory of it. Did I do something wrong last night? This made Daljin jealous. He thought she had mistaken him for Ti-woon, and that the person she actually wanted to kiss wasn't him. Go Hee-rai noticed Daljin's strange expression. She thought she had done something wrong, and saw him coldly walk away. Go Hee-rai was confused, couldn't concentrate at work, and felt useless. Go Hee-rai decided to just let it go. Hey, the bathroom is out of toilet paper. Can you bring me a roll? HWA Suk thought she was worried about Ti-woon's injuries and advised her to call and check on him, instead of continuing her secret crush. But at that moment, all Go Hee-rai could think about was why Daljin was acting so strangely that morning. She called, but no one answered. She ended up calling Daljin's close friend, Gwang Duk, and found out he was training like crazy at the judo gym. Gwang Duk answered the phone for Daljin, but Go Hee-rai immediately stopped him. He's okay, that's enough. Please don't tell him I called. She secretly ran off, but was discovered, so she pretended to be there to register for classes. Gwang Duk got the message and assigned the teaching duties to Daljin, saying that he was very skilled. Daljin waved his hand in agreement and even kindly helped Go Hee-rai adjust her martial arts uniform. Since she already knew the basics, he said, "Grab my collar." "Yes, very good, right leg." "We found the Yuzi in Morocco. An arrest warrant for Jessica will soon be issued." An anonymous source provided crucial evidence. Looking into Go Hee-rai's star-like eyes, Daljin turned away in embarrassment. From behind, she hugged him and playfully teased, "I think this is wonderful news." Due to his tension, Daljin accidentally threw Go Hee-rai to the ground with a shoulder throw. He could only awkwardly explain, "I'm just teaching seriously." "Hey Daljin, what's wrong? Can you stop acting so weird?" What did she mean by that? Seriously, did I do something wrong that night? You have to tell me so I can think of how to make it up to you. She didn't do anything wrong. Class is dismissed. At night, the blue house was still lit up. Gukpyo was enjoying his nightly massage. The director of the National Intelligence Service came to probe his attitude. The reason was that a few hours earlier, Han Gi, the president's chief secretary, had met with him, expressing that Gukpyo didn't want to see news of the real culprit being punished. The director cursed the other party for being crazy, but he produced evidence of corruption as a threat. To determine if this was actually arranged by the president, he deliberately came here to check. But at this moment, Gukpyo was enjoying himself, and was bothered by the interruption, making him irritable. "You're making me stressed, ruining my massage." The director, startled, apologized. At that moment, the cheek-kissing girl said that she had to be excused, and then climbed onto the President of the Republic of Korea. This made the Chief of Staff standing beside them unable to look directly at the scene. Afterward, Guk Pyo stated, he supports Jessica's company not for personal gain, but because it could help our national defense become independent. Besides Daljin's accusations, there was no other significant evidence regarding the plane crash, and the implication was quite clear. Finally, the Chief of Staff understood, and he bowed to take his leave. It's so easy to be a loyal subject. Someone who works conscientiously like you, helping me manage the national politics, is what a loyal subject should do. On the other side, Daljin learned that Yuzi was hiding in Morocco. The National Intelligence Service had sent agents to capture him, and being eager for revenge, Daljin also quietly followed. On the plane, he actively sought out Go Hee Rai, hoping to participate in the capture, but she refused him. He could only investigate secretly on his own, as Yuzi was hiding in a slum with an incredibly complex terrain, only relying on phone signals for location. However, the South Korean media publicly released information about Sang Mai's arrest and the possibility that Yuzi was still alive. Upon learning the news, Yuzi immediately destroyed his phone. This significantly increased the difficulty in finding him. However, driven by a strong urge of self-interest, the Moroccan police helped Jessica arrest Yuzi. Several days passed, and there was no progress in the search. Worried, Daljin approached Go Hee Rai, hoping to cooperate with her to find Yuzi. This time, Go Hee Rai agreed. She realized that Koreans weren't used to drinking tap water there, so Yuzi would definitely buy bottled water. Then, using infrared equipment, she observed from above, directing Daljin to search room by room. The two were cooperating once again. Could they find the key criminal Yuzi? He was originally a stuntman, but lost his only family member in the plane crash, and he also inadvertently discovered that this was a terrorist plot. During the investigation, Daljin met FBI agent Go Hee Rai. Both of them possessed outstanding skills and decided to cooperate in seeking the truth about the plane crash. They not only caught the corrupt director Min, but with their cooperation, they found Yuzi. Daljin angrily attacked him as he was about to interrogate the mastermind. Then, a group of local police suddenly appeared and subdued the two. Unexpectedly, this group had been bribed, and they were specifically there to destroy evidence. Upon learning this, the capture team immediately notified those back home to coordinate. No wonder, it's Ti-woong. Didn't we find him? So, who found him? It was Go Hee Rai, and also Daljin's father, family of a victim. They rescued the prisoner and Daljin, then began the interrogation right away. But he firmly refused to admit involvement in causing the plane crash. As everyone was at a loss, Yuzi suddenly convulsed and fell to the ground. After examination, it was discovered that he was an addict. To protect the safety of the prisoner, Ti-woong prepared to inject him with a painkiller to alleviate the withdrawal symptoms. Just as he was about to administer the injection, Daljin snatched the syringe away, using it to pressure Yuzi into telling the truth. Ti-woong, concerned for the prisoner's safety, lunged at Daljin, and the medication fell to the floor. At this point, Go Hee Rai picked up the painkiller, and as she hesitated, Ti-woong urged her to quickly inject the prisoner. Daljin, however, told her to continue pressing for information. Go Hee Rai followed Daljin's instructions. She placed a foot on the prisoner's chest and continued the interrogation, but Yuzi still refused to talk. Go Hee Rai slowly pushed the plunger on the syringe. Seeing the painkiller being wasted, the prisoner immediately changed his statement. Due to prolonged drug addiction and gambling, he had accumulated substantial debt. Miker, the vice president of the Z Corporation, paid him 50 billion South Korean won to participate in causing the plane crash. As the prisoner was about to pass out, Go Hee Rai injected him with the painkiller. After Yuzi was satisfied and regained consciousness, he recanted his previous statement and chose to remain silent. All they could do was take him back to their country for further questioning. When Go Hee Rai was getting into the car, Ti-woong closed the car door, leaving her and Daljin to fend for themselves. The two had no choice but to take a taxi to the airport. Unexpectedly, on the way to the airport, they were constantly being followed. Police and traffic also directed the convoy into a deserted road. After Ti-woong's group's vehicle passed, the taxi the two were in was also stopped. Little did they know, a heavily armed terrorist group was waiting for them. Never had he seen a man so pathetic. To keep the girl from getting cold, he slowly pulled his shirt down. Just as he was about to finish, he looked up, and she was staring at him. Daljin couldn't avoid being slapped. "What do you think you're doing?" Go-hee Rai immediately defended herself. "I was just helping her adjust her clothes." Clearly, Go-hee Rai didn't believe his explanation. Then what was that look for? How is my half-asleep gaze supposed to be? What kind of person do you take me for? The two argued for a while before deciding to be silent. They each muttered a complaint at the other before lying down to sleep. However, not even 5 minutes after they lay down, Daljin clenched the bedsheet. Thinking there was some kind of bad scheme again, he then saw Go-hee Rai behind him hugging him tightly to avoid any mistakes. Daljin had no choice but to put his hands down. However, this time, Go-hee Rai went too far. Not only did she hug him tightly with both arms, but she also rested her leg on Daljin's body. "So, I think if something really happens, you two are both responsible," she said. At the same time, the enemy was well prepared. As soon as Go-hee Rai and Daljin entered the country, they would immediately be dealt with. Their accomplices had also arrived at the docks to provide support. Soon, the containers were being unloaded from the ship. During unloading, the container shook violently. Daljin, instinctively wanting to protect Go-hee Rai, ended up lying on top of her. That's it, now it's even harder to explain. Not long after, the container was loaded onto the truck, and its doors were opened. At that point, everyone thought it was all over. But suddenly, gunshots rang out. They quickly jumped back into the truck to take cover, and their accomplices immediately started the truck to escape. 2 vehicles gave chase right behind them. Just then, another vehicle sped in from the front, forcing their truck to a halt. They started firing into the container. Those inside could only try to defend themselves. Seeing that if they continued like this, everyone would certainly be in danger, Daljin decided to risk getting another vehicle to escape. Go-hee Rai was very worried about his safety and didn't want him to take the risk. However, there was no other way now. They had to take a gamble. Daljin used all his strength to kick open the ventilation door and jumped out, recklessly running towards the other vehicle. His teammates did their best to provide cover fire for him. Just as Daljin was about to reach the vehicle, the gunman with the machine gun began to unleash a barrage of bullets. At that critical moment, a sniper shot echoed from afar. It turned out to be Ju Chul helping them out. Thanks to his swiftness, Daljin finally reached the vehicle. Under the cover of his teammates, he successfully drove the vehicle to the side of the container. Everyone got into the vehicle. Daljin drove towards the courthouse, but the enemy was still tailing them closely. Neither side would back down. Could Daljin safely bring the witness to the courthouse? And where did he find the courage to confront the government? A witness that even the president had ordered to be eliminated. The courthouse was approaching, but ahead were many heavily armed special police officers blocking the road. Daljin immediately turned around to find another way out, but they were cut off in the middle of the highway by pursuing police vehicles. The group was surrounded. If the order was given, they would surely be destroyed. The opposition would show no mercy because it was the South Korean government that wanted to eliminate them. How would Daljin and his group break out of this situation? At this moment, Chief Min used a megaphone to warn them and demand that they surrender obediently, then said something to a special police officer. The officer was shocked and began to issue an ultimatum to Daljin's group. "Okay, I'm starting the countdown." The prisoner Yusi, unable to withstand the pressure, was the first to get out of the vehicle to surrender. The others also got out one by one. Then, the officer gave the order to open fire. The special police were stunned, not understanding why they had to be eliminated even after surrendering. At this moment, Daljin noticed that behind Chief Min, a special police officer had already cocked his gun, about to shoot at them. Daljin shouted for everyone to get out of the way. Before his words could finish, bullets rained down on Daljin's group. They immediately took cover behind the vehicle, unable to move. Seeing that someone was firing, the special police also started shooting. Just then, a dump truck crashed through the fence, stopping short, effectively blocking the incoming fire aimed at Daljin's group. This provided a much-needed reprieve. The truck driver flung open his door, shouting, "Get out of here, now!" They looked back to see the victims' families lending their support. Seizing the opportunity, they scrambled into their vehicle and sped away from the barrage of gunfire, heading for the courthouse. Less than 500 meters from their destination, their car suddenly broke down. Forced to abandon the vehicle, they continued on foot. At this point, the assassins caught up and began firing at Daljan's group. Suddenly, a van barreled out of an intersection, slamming head-on into the assassin's car. The impact knocked the assassins unconscious. It turned out to be more of the victims' families. They yelled for Daljan, "Run, go now." Daljan realized then that he wasn't alone in seeking the truth. Many families of the victims felt the same. Carrying the weight of their collective will, they sprinted with everything they had towards the courthouse. However, Chief Min was already there, blocking their path at the courthouse entrance. "Stop them!" The scene ignited fury in the victims' families, who roared and charged towards the police. Daljan, seeing their determined expressions, became more resolute than ever to get the witness into the courthouse so the truth could be revealed. They took advantage of the chaos and surged into the building. Inside, a sniper's rifle was aimed at their witness. High on the rooftop, the sniper focused on their sole witness, Lily. Without hesitation, she pulled the trigger, shooting the witness in the arm. As she prepared to fire again, a surge of victims' families rushed forward, forming a human shield, and got Yuzi inside the courthouse. Inside, Yuzi didn't disappoint anyone. He testified that Miker had directed him to cause the plane crash, and had paid him 500 million Korean won as compensation. Lawyer Sung Bayam argued that Yuzi's statement lacked evidence and wouldn't be accepted by the judge. Yuzi immediately produced a video of the transaction. The victims' families, upon learning the truth, were overcome with grief, condemning Miker as cruel and inhuman. Chief Min, realizing that the situation was sealed, turned and fled, calling Han Gi for help. But he was met with the reality of abandonment. At that moment, Ti Woong also came after him. Chief Min could only frantically flee. Suddenly, a car sped out and struck him. Shockingly, the driver was none other than Chief Gang, his sworn enemy. Chief Min's subordinates, seeing this, turned and ran. Chief Min prepared for a life-or-death battle with Chief Gang, but was no match for his strength. Chief Min was completely overpowered by Chief Gang. At the same time, the court also delivered its verdict, concluding that the Zone Corporation would be prosecuted for terrorism. After the trial concluded, the family members were all immersed in joy. However, Go Hee-Rai's face turned pale, her lower back throbbed, and she nearly collapsed. It turned out, while protecting the witness, she had been shot. Daljan quickly carried Go Hee-Rai on his back and ran outside, but they were surrounded by reporters. He angrily berated the reporters. "You didn't report anything before, and now you remember your duty as reporters? Get out of the way, get out of the way." Then, Daljan carried Go Hee-Rai towards the ambulance. As he put her into the ambulance, Daljan turned around and spoke to Guk Pyo in front of the cameras. "Remember, you told me that you would expose the truth and told me not to worry. Who are you talking to now?" The president heard his question, and Guk Pyo was so frightened that his wine glass fell to the floor. He was now like a man sitting on hot coals, but Sun Jo remained completely calm. It seemed like he had a plan already prepared. Sun Jo suggested that the chief secretary and the speaker of the National Assembly should take the blame. After being reminded, Guk Pyo immediately called Han Gi. After hanging up, Han Gi took out a tablet. Inside was a video with evidence of Guk Pyo receiving bribes. If the video were exposed, Guk Pyo would surely face prison time. After that, Han Gi went to the meeting point to meet Guk Pyo. During their conversation, Guk Pyo told Han Gi and the Speaker of the National Assembly to voluntarily take responsibility for everything. He told them that as long as he was not removed from power, they would be rescued soon. After the conversation, the Speaker complained to Han Gi, dissatisfied with this arrangement, but Han Gi warned him. He argued that they could only rise again if they protected Guk Pyo. Returning to his car, Han Gi discovered his tablet was missing. In its place were a bottle of wine and charcoal, implying that Han Gi should log out by burning charcoal. At this point, Han Gi completely broke down, angrily slamming the steering wheel. At the press conference, Guk Pyo followed his plan and blamed everything on Han Gi and the speaker. He hid alone in his car, listening to his statement. Looking at a photo of himself with his mother, Han Gi despaired, burned charcoal, and as smoke billowed, he slowly collapsed. At the same time, Go Hee Rai was taken into surgery. Knowing she might be paralyzed, everyone went to the church to pray for Go Hee Rai. A few hours later, the surgery was finished. The doctor told Daljin, the surgery was a success. As long as she does well with her rehabilitation exercises, there won't be any lasting effects. Everyone quickly expressed their gratitude. Just when they thought everything was over, Daljin suddenly received a strange message. He opened the link and saw a video that Cha Hun had recorded before he died. However, this video had been lost a long time ago. Why did it suddenly reappear? Before he could think much further, he received a strange call. Who was on the other end, and what conspiracy was afoot? The woman slapped her victim to the ground, then threw a blanket over her head, instructing fellow inmates to continue massaging her. This was the grim reality of a South Korean women's prison. Jessica, the one who had been assaulted, wasn't just the CEO of a listed company before her incarceration. She was also the lover of Kook Pyo. She was arrested and imprisoned after being exposed for bribing government officials and conspiring with terrorists. Kook Pyo coldly abandoned her after the incident, and the entire world believed Jessica was finished. Only she knew for sure that she wasn't responsible for the plane crash. Therefore, she immediately arranged to meet with Lily, requesting her to forward a video to Daljin. Just as Jessica predicted, Daljin received the video. He and Hee Rai went to the prison to question her right away. Jessica directly denied any involvement in the plane crash, and she told Daljin that Sang Mai had been secretly released. This news left the two of them completely stunned. At the same time, Sang Mai, in disguise, went to an internet cafe. She discovered that her account had been drained of all funds. She took out her phone and called her superior, demanding payment. She was told that the money would be transferred in 3 days. With no other options, Sang Mai had no choice but to agree. But she threatened the person on the other end, saying that if the money wasn't there in 3 days, she would expose everything they had done. However, Sang Mai was unaware that they were just trying to buy time. They were using the 3 days to find her and eliminate her. They believed that only a dead person could keep a secret completely. Meanwhile, Hee Rai was reporting Jessica's statements to Chief Kang. Sang Mai's disappearance had turned the case into an unsolved puzzle. Hee Rai decided to visit Sang Mai's husband in prison to understand the situation better. A colleague told her that Wu Jai had become mentally unstable due to drug addiction and was now being treated at a mental hospital. The two of them immediately went there. At that moment, Wu Jai's eyes were vacant. He didn't respond to any of their questions, only stared blankly at the camera. When Daljin asked about a scarred man named Jeriam, he started screaming. Staff members quickly ended the conversation. Just as Wu Jai was about to be taken away, he grabbed Hee Rai's hand and said, "Save me, they want to kill me." However, the staff explained that he was just saying nonsensical things whenever he lost control of his emotions. What both of them didn't know was that Jeriam was watching their every move through the camera. Scene cuts to a hospital. The presidential secretary, who unsuccessfully attempted suicide, is lying in a hospital bed. Soon-jo is the one who saved him. Han Kai asks why he was saved. He cuts straight to the chase, saying his tablet has nothing on it. Where is Kook Pyo's corruption evidence after all? At this moment, Han Kai realizes that Soon-jo was the one who had his tablet stolen. Since the desired evidence wasn't found, he saved him. Then, he throws a phone at him, telling Han Kai to think carefully and then call him. He understands that if he hands over the evidence to him, Kook Pyo will certainly be overthrown. However, the biggest beneficiary will be him, and he will directly advance to become the interim president. Afterward, Soon-jo calls a press conference, declaring that Han Kai and the Speaker of the National Assembly are scapegoats, and that Kook Pyo was the one who truly accepted bribes. The reporters are in an uproar. Kook Pyo, who is watching the broadcast, also knows that he is done for. The person he trusted most has betrayed him. Could it be that Soon-jo is behind this whole thing? Or is there an even bigger kingpin who has yet to emerge? A different scene now. Look closely. A masked girl on a subway is about to be captured by an assassin. In the nick of time, she throws away her backpack and runs down the subway train to escape the pursuit. At the same time, Daljin is discussing the plane crash with Edward Park of DKP Corporation. While talking about the strangeness of the case, Edward Park warns Daljin not to trust Jessica. He nods in agreement. At this point, his phone rings. The caller is Sang Mai. She tells Daljin that she has evidence about the person behind it, and that she is being pursued. She asks to meet him right away. After saying the location, she sees the assassin chasing her. Sang Mai hangs up, turns around and runs. The assassin picks up the phone, hears Daljin's voice. He doesn't say anything, but hangs up immediately. This man is the scarred man, Jeriam, who caused the plane crash. Afterward, Daljin says goodbye to Edward Park and quickly goes to the meeting location. He goes upstairs to search, and just at the right moment, encounters Jeriam. He pulls out a gun and shoots directly at Daljin. He quickly hides in a corner and then stabs Jeriam in the thigh with a screwdriver. After grabbing the gun, the two wrestle with each other. Daljin is kicked outside. Jeriam takes this opportunity to pick up the gun from the floor and shoots wildly at Daljin. At the same time, Sang Mai is also being chased by another assassin. She hides in a dark room, her hands shaking, not daring to make a sound. Unexpectedly, the assassin is right behind her, slowly moving closer. On the other side, Daljin successfully ambushes Jeriam, kicking him down. However, another assassin arrives. Daljin turns and runs away. At this moment, the sound of police sirens rings out. Jeriam has no choice but to retreat first. Daljin also discovers Sang Mai in the small room. At this moment, she is dying, still murmuring the words Samo. Before she takes her last breath, Sang Mai draws a mysterious shape on the ground, leaving behind an important clue about the person behind it. Daljin takes out his phone to take a picture of the drawing on the ground. Afterward, the police arrive to take Daljin to the station, interrogating him as if he were a criminal. They do a series of procedures such as fingerprinting and taking a statement. This makes Daljin extremely uncomfortable. At this time, Rai arrives, presenting her intelligence agency ID and taking him away. Unexpectedly, all their actions at the police station are being monitored by Jeriam. It can be seen just how powerful the other side is. As they step out of the police station, the situation suddenly changes. The intelligence agency offers special protection to Daljin, but he refuses immediately. At this moment, Rai says forcefully, "Didn't you see Sang Mai's fate? You could be the next target. Stay with me." To which Daljin replies something like, "I would be the one protecting you, not the other way around." At this moment, some members of the intelligence agency are studying the images Daljin sent. They are also very puzzled by this clue. They can only make a preliminary analysis. Besides Kook Pyo and Soon Jo, there's definitely someone else pulling the strings. If their deduction is correct, it proves that the mastermind behind the plane crash is someone else. Meanwhile, Daljin is taking a shower. He draws the image Sang Mai showed him on the mirror, suddenly realizes something, and adds the final 2 strokes. Isn't this the tattoo on Jeriam's body? Daljin gets excited and hurriedly rushes out to tell Rai, but forgets that he's completely naked. His face turns bright red. Reacting to the situation, Daljin immediately retreats back into the bathroom. She quietly whispers, "I really didn't see anything." The two immediately report the situation to Director Kang. He immediately arranges for his subordinates to start searching for the mysterious organization with that tattoo. Daljin and Rai also begin searching for clues online. After searching for a while, they don't find anything. She turns to complain to him about the lack of progress. As their eyes meet, an awkward atmosphere fills the room. Daljin, gathering his courage, asks Rai if she saw anything earlier. Rai quickly explains, "The bathroom incident? I really didn't see anything." "Well, I probably should have seen something, but you acted so fast." "I really didn't see anything." "Really?" Due to prolonged stress, Daljin falls asleep on the sofa, but Rai recalls the scene from that evening. Then, she thinks to herself, "Of course, I saw it. My eyesight is pretty good." However, Daljin is pretending to be asleep. At this moment, he is extremely embarrassed. "I just want to die." But seeing Rai fast asleep, Daljin takes the initiative to help cover her with a blanket. The two, having been through life and death together, have been secretly attracted to each other for a long time. At the same time, the only witness to the plane crash, Wu Jai, is arrested. He is brutally interrogated. He requests to meet the mastermind but is directly refused by Jeriam. The investigation hits another dead end. The two have no choice but to ask Jessica if she knows which organization the drawing represents. She borrows Daljan's phone and sends the picture directly to Lily, calling her to ask if she recognizes the image. Lily says she's never seen it before. Jessica asks her to help investigate, promising a generous reward after the job is done. Lily happily agrees. Daljan is quite frustrated that they haven't gained any useful clues. He goes to the scene where Sang Mai was murdered, looking for clues. But remembering Ti Woong's words, he suddenly understands who would benefit the most if the current president was overthrown. Perhaps Kook Pio could provide a breakthrough in the case. However, their request to meet the president is quickly denied. Daljan and Hee Rai can only wait outside the Blue House, hoping for Kook Pio to appear. Their patience pays off. Not long after seeing the president's motorcade arrive, Daljan immediately blocks the vehicles but is quickly restrained by security guards. Kook Pio lowers his car window, angrily scolding his outrageous actions. Daljan immediately explains, "Have you ever thought that you might be being used? What if someone is taking advantage of you, Mr. President?" Hearing Daljan's words, Kook Pio agrees to listen to his opinion and takes him to a small forest. Daljan presents his entire hypothesis about Soon Jo. He argues that Kook Pio has been manipulated and hopes that he can help with the investigation. Due to the lack of evidence, Kook Pio refuses. Daljan criticizes him for just standing by and watching. Kook Pio, in turn, thinks that Daljan is crazy. At the same time, Han Kai proactively turned himself in to the intelligence agency. The interrogation went smoothly. He handed over all the videos and audio recordings of Kook Pio accepting bribes. When asked why he voluntarily submitted to investigation and whether he knew Samael, he refused to answer any questions. Soon after, the news of Kook Pio accepting bribes was broadcast on television. It stirred up a hornet's nest. The Speaker of the National Assembly, the Minister of National Defense, and other high-ranking officials were all arrested. The people began protesting, demanding Kook Pio's resignation. Could it really be resolved this easily? How difficult is it to be president of South Korea? He was the president of South Korea, but due to the exposure of his corruption, he was impeached by the National Assembly. The assembly members also began meeting to discuss whether or not to remove the president from office. The outcome was obvious. They quickly passed the motion to impeach the president with a unanimous vote. The families of the victims cheered in celebration. At this point, Kook Pio was isolated, hiding in his car, preparing to end his own life by taking pills. In the final moment, he remembered Daljan's words, "What if someone is manipulating the president?" In order to no longer be Soon Jo's pawn, Kook Pio could only seek help from Daljan. After meeting, he said he could try his best to help Daljan investigate the truth. But he no longer needed the help of an impeached president on the verge of being overthrown. As he watched Daljan's retreating back, Kook Pio told him to save his phone number, and that he could call him later if he needed to. Meanwhile, Hee Rai and the others discovered Jeriam's identity on the dark web. He was an assassin belonging to the American mercenary group, Black Sun. Hee Rai immediately informed Daljan of this news. He asked Edward Park if he knew the mercenary group Black Sun. He said he did, but that this was very important and they needed to meet in person to discuss the details. Arriving at Edward Park's garage, Daljan received a call from the wife of reporter Bu Yong. He learned that on July 24th, Bu Yong was preparing to celebrate his wedding anniversary with his wife. On the way to pick her up, he was in a car accident and died. Suddenly, Daljan realized, wasn't it on July 23rd that Edward Park said he would help find Bu Yong? Why did he die the very next day? Could all of this be related to him? As he went upstairs, Mickey led Daljan to Edward Park's office. Watching her walk in front of him, he suddenly realized Mickey was suspicious. In a critical situation, a single move can be enough to escape danger. Once inside the office, Daljan deliberately spilled tea on Mickey's hand. While helping her wipe it off, he took the opportunity to check her arm. Indeed, there was a tattoo on her wrist, exactly like Jeriam's. At this point, Daljan finally realized that Edward Park was the true mastermind behind everything. He probed, asking if he knew Samael. Edward Park was startled and said that he had just come across information about Samael by chance. As he was getting some documents, Daljan picked up a pen from the desk to use as a weapon. And Edward Park at this point already intended to kill. As Daljan slowly moved towards him, Edward Park immediately pulled out a gun and fired, but Daljan stabbed him in the hand with the pen. He snatched the gun, intending to shoot him. He didn't expect that his opponent was prepared. Not only did they plant a time bomb at the restaurant where the victim's family was gathered, but they also pointed a gun at Hee Rai. Seeing her in the crosshairs, Daljan's psyche collapsed. To prevent anyone else from dying, he had no choice but to surrender, and was subsequently knocked to the ground by Edward Park. Daljan now knows the truth. Can he escape their clutches? Can he capture Edward Park? Her boyfriend just murdered. His girlfriend immediately went to the prison for revenge. But she doesn't know that Daljan had been rescued a second before the explosion. For the safety of his loved ones, Daljan can only choose to change his name and identity, secretly investigating the truth to get his revenge. Daljan pleads with Lily to get him into the Black Sun mercenary group. She doesn't refuse. Helping out is fine, as long as she gets paid enough. So, Daljan has no other option but to call Courthouse. Courthouse was stunned when he heard Daljan's voice on the other end. But news of his supposed death had been released by the media. How could he be calling? Courthouse even thought he was getting a scam call. Daljan said, "I'm right outside your door." When he saw Daljan, he was also stunned, and directly pulled him inside. Courthouse asked Daljan how he survived. He didn't explain much and cut straight to the point. "I don't have much time to explain now. I hope you haven't forgotten your promise to help me. Tell me, what do you need?" "I need money." "What do you want me to do?" "I need to enter the lion's den, directly infiltrate enemy territory." After thinking for a moment, Courthouse agreed. At this time, Jessica called Lily, hoping she would help her contact the U.S. Attorney General so she could be extradited back to the U.S. Lily happily agreed and conveniently told her that Edward Park is actually Samuel. However, Hee Rai went directly to the prison to find Jessica, preparing to avenge Daljan, but was discovered by the warden and stopped in time. To prove her innocence, Jessica said, "Edward Park is Samuel." Upon hearing this news, Hee Rai immediately realized that he was the one who killed Daljan. Because of violating prison rules, they were both locked in a dark room. Hee Rai, unaware that Daljan was still alive, cried sadly. At the same time, Edward Park, knowing that Hee Rai was in jail, guessed that she was investigating. He prepared to visit her in the storeroom to probe her. Hee Rai restrained her inner hatred, telling Edward Park that, "I came here willingly." Why did she say that? Daljan's father was cremated by Jessica. Do you have evidence? Samuel, Black Sun, the tattoo symbol. The intelligence that Oh Sang Mai gave us was all fake. She was tricked by Jessica. Why did Jessica have to do all that? She wanted to buy time to skew the direction of the investigation and then find a way to be quickly extradited to the US. But Daljan's father had discovered it, so she killed him. But there is no way you can prove Jessica committed a crime just because you entered here. If the law can't punish her, then I will deal with her myself. I will surely settle the score with her for cremating Daljan's father. Looking at Edward Park's expression, he was clearly convinced by Hee Rai's reasoning. Can Hee Rai avenge Daljan? But Hee Rai's actions attracted the attention of the perpetrator. Through surveillance cameras, he watched her every move. In order to fully convince Edward Park that she came there for revenge, Hee Rai even used a knife to engage Jessica. Only then did he reluctantly believe her. Jessica was even more desperate. She called Edward Park requesting a meeting, and then gave him an email address that contained all the evidence of the John and Mark group's crimes. Edward Park was suspicious of Jessica's motives, believing that what she was doing wouldn't benefit her at all. Jessica angrily retorted that she had been abandoned by the corporation. The headquarters had absolutely no intention of helping her with extradition back to the United States and was leaving her to fend for herself here. After saying this, Jessica stood up to leave, but Edward Park asked her why she didn't ask him for help. Just one word from him, and he could help her return home. Jessica turned back, her eyes filled with hatred, and said to Edward Park, "I hate you. Even if I'm about to die, I wouldn't ask for your help." Edward Park was moved by her words. Because Jessica had been his favorite student, he made a phone call, instructing someone to arrange her extradition. However, it was all intentional. It was to get Edward Park to voluntarily facilitate her return. Half a year later, Rai was also released, as the charges against her had not been proven. As she stepped out of prison, a red sports car pulled up in front of her. To her surprise, the driver was Jessica. She said, "With Rai's current status, she can avenge Daljan. I hope you will come with me to the United States, receive training to become a top negotiator, and stop the business schemes of Edward Park and Soon Jo." But they didn't know that Daljan was not only alive, but had also successfully infiltrated the Black Sun mercenary group. During an operation to steal biological weapons, he learned they intended to use these weapons to carry out a terrorist attack. At that moment, Lily hacked into the organization's radio system and informed him that the person coming to pick up the biological weapons was Jeriam. If he was exposed, he would surely die. Lily urged Daljan to retreat immediately, but he cut off the transmission, changed his magazine, and took out the remaining Black Sun members. When Jeriam arrived to retrieve the biological weapon, there was no one left alive at the scene. On the table, there was only a box. He placed the weapon down and carefully opened the box. While he was examining the biological weapon, Daljan seized the opportunity to feed him a lead candy. Finally, the chance for revenge had come. Would Daljan succeed in his revenge? This man was too ruthless. Without waiting for his opponent to beg for mercy, he pressed the button. The vial containing the virus immediately shattered. Jeriam writhed in agony on the ground, and boils began to erupt all over his face. However, Daljan mockingly said, "You're very scared, aren't you? It hurts a lot, right?" Jeriam was in immense pain and begged Daljan to grant him a quick death. At this moment, Daljan took out the antidote and said, "If you get the injection within 2 minutes, you can still be saved. If you don't want to die, confess everything truthfully so you can live." Jeriam confessed all the leads he knew. Edward Park wanted to use the biological weapons to attack Kyria, create chaos, and then take control of the entire country, thus gaining access to Russia's oil rights. Having obtained the leads, Daljan threw the antidote onto the ground and stomped on it, crushing it. He then threw a grenade behind him, destroying the biological weapons lab, and leisurely walked away. To secure the Russian oil project, Edward Park personally led his secretary, Kim, and director Min to the location. However, Rai, having undergone rigorous training, had become a top-tier negotiator. Her mission this time was also to win the oil exploitation rights in Russia. Fully prepared, she boarded a honky extended limousine, heading towards the Russian palace. The car sped across the North African desert. Unbeknownst to them, a sniper team was already waiting along their route. The sniper was none other than Daljan. Shortly, their target appeared. His team shot out the tires, causing the car to immediately come to a halt with a burst tire. The task of eliminating the target was assigned to Daljan. Just as Daljan prepared to fire, a gentle breeze blew away the woman's face covering. It was at this moment that he realized the target he was to take out was Rai. Seeing that Daljan wasn't firing, his teammates kept urging him through his earpiece. Daljan could fire now. When Daljan still didn't react, his teammate requested permission to take down the target. Hearing that, Daljan immediately adjusted his aim, and with one shot, took out his teammate. Hearing the gunshot, the bodyguards immediately escorted Rai back into the car and drove away. At this point, Daljan broke down in tears, blaming himself. Because he understood, she had come here for him. With that, part 1 of the movie Vagabond officially concluded. The screenwriter delivered an open ending, with both the male and female leads having changed their positions, each fighting against the dark forces in their own way.